Hi everybody, this is Johnny Barnett. I'm an astrologer and I'm typically talking on this channel about planets and chakras and their relationship, but I just stumbled across something last night. I'm just so thrilled and excited about this. I want to share it right away. I know the lighting's not perfect and the graphics are up here on this board, which is the way I usually teach when I'm in person doing my class, but we'll make a more professional version soon, but I just had to spit this out today. Because, the moon's in Gemini. It's a good day for that. So we're going to show the connection between astrology, the Fibonacci sequence of numbers. If you saw the Da Vinci Code or read it, you know about that really cool series of numbers. I'll point that out in just a second. We're going to link music in there. We're going to link magic in there. It's going to show you all these connections that have always been there in our world, but no one's telling you about them. So I'm telling you about them right now. So by the way, I want to thank Eric Rankin, the creator of a video called Sonic Geometry. And if you haven't seen that yet, I highly recommend, if you're into this kind of stuff, where he showed that the angles in geometric shapes like squares and triangles, etc., all have a numeric value. That's where music comes in. We'll talk about music and hertz in just a second. So anyway, thanks to Eric for that. I sort of took what he created and ran with it. So with an astrological perspective. So here we go. Let's start with the Fibonacci numbers. Just in case you're not familiar with these, the Fibonacci sequence is where you take one number and then you add it to the number before it to get the next number, and continue to add the number previous to it to get your next number. So of course you start with 1, and 1 plus nothing is 1. So you have another 1 up here. And then 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. So on and so on and so on. And so anyway, I took this out to 12 places and wound up with 144, which you might recognize. 144, can you see it? Sorry about that. You might recognize 144 from the Bible. You might recognize it from other esoteric studies. It's a pretty interesting number that keeps showing up in ancient literature. So there we have the Fibonacci numbers. The next thing I did is I took the numerical value of notes in music. If you're not familiar with music, we measure notes, or the sound of notes, in hertz. So that's what this little HZ stands for up here, hertz. So 432 hertz is the note A. And what's interesting, and you can pick any note and it will have a numeric value in hertz. So when you take a number and you divide it by 2, or if you multiply it by 2, you get the next octave up or down of the same note. So if this is 432 is A, 215 would be, well, I can't even go that low. But 864 would be A, the same note but a next octave higher. So I've taken the first A, which is 27, because you cannot divide 27 into 2 and get an even number. Oh, by the way, I should mention that the Greeks of, I don't want to call them ancient times, but before the Roman Empire came along, so guys like Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato, etc. Those guys, apparently they didn't care too much for fractions. And so all of their system, and Pythagoras, by the way, is considered the inventor of our modern Western musical scale. He would not have gone any further than 27. And we'll also talk about why he got 27 to begin with. Anyway, so I got 27, 54, 108, 216, and 432 hertz over here on this side of the board. So the next thing I did, being an astrologer, is I started looking at astrological angles, or the angles we measure between planets. Like a square in astrology, there's 90 degrees in that angle. A trine, there's 60 degrees in an equilateral triangle, an internal degree. Pentagons, hexagons, so on and so on. What I'm started looking at were the ones that the Greeks did not talk about. Again, like I said, they didn't like fractions, and so the 5s and the 7s were not really talked about because you can't divide 5 or 7 into 12. And of course, in astrology, we have the 12 signs. In the calendar, we have the 12 months. And so 12 is an integral part of their math system, our math system for that matter. So, so they left out the 5s and the 7s, but I like to look at 5s and 7s, and here's why. We call the angle when you divide a circle by 5 a quintile. Quint is 5, and then when you divide a circle by 7, you have septiles, sept 7. And so here's what happens when you start looking at these angles. First off, when you divide a circle by 5, you get 72. And so if you continue to measure all the points of the 72 degrees apart from each other as you go around the zodiac, you get 144, 216, sorry, forgot my math, 288, and then you're back to 360, or 0 if you prefer. So you might notice that 144 shows up again, just like it did over here. You might notice that 216 shows up, just like it did over here. So there's something going on already, right? Septiles are even funkier than quintiles because you cannot divide 360 by 7 and get a number that ends. You can divide 5 into 360, you get 72, but if you divide 7 into 360, you get 51.428. Excuse me. 5, 7, 1, and it continues. 4, 2, 8, 5, 7, 1, on and on and on forever. You might recall that 7 is a magical number or a special number, like God creates the world in 7 days. There are 7 books in Harry Potter. There are 7 colors in the rainbow. There's something really unique about 7, and this is the mathematical explanation for that. 7, you can't divide 7 into 360 and get a finished product. It's an infinite number. So what you do when you, and I'm just going to take this out to 2 places. When you divide your circle by 7, all your different angles are here: 51.42, 102.82, 154.26, 205.73, 257.15, 308.57, and then of course that brings you back to 360. So, like I said, I'm only taking these out to 2 decimal places for sake of space. But you get the idea. We got 5 angles over here. We got 7 angles over here. And what I did next was I took all these numbers and I added them up. And when I added up my quintiles, I got 1,080. And if you convert this number into music, 1,080 hertz is the note F sharp. As it turns out, when you measure the internal angles of a triangle, you also get an F sharp. When you measure the internal angles of a square, you get an F sharp. This is like a quintessential note, if you will, at least in geometric terms. Again, watch Sonic Geometry. He will explain all that for you and beautifully illustrate it with cool graphics and sound and everything. You'll love it, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, so you add up all your numbers in a quintile, you get that F sharp again. Well, what happens when we add up all our numbers in a septile? We're going to come up with a total of excuse me, I'm using the wrong color. We're going to come up with a total of 1,440. What a cool number again. And when we convert that to hertz, we come up with the note C sharp. And again, if you watch Sonic Geometry, you'll see that C sharp is the other prevalent note that comes out when you start adding geometric shapes. And if you're a musician, you know that F sharp and C sharp are the first two notes of a chord, meaning that they are harmonizing with each other. If you just watch Sonic Geometry, it'll explain all this for you. So we basically have this really cool chord coming up. And then what I did after that was I took the 5-pointed star, because you see, when you have a quintile, you're making 5 points around a circle. It looks a lot like this, a 5-pointed star. So the next thing I did was start plugging in my degrees for my quintiles. And of course, if you start here with 0 or 360, either way, you go up here, excuse me, I'm sorry, I want to start here because it's going to look cool when I do. You get 72 down there, you get 144 up there, you get 216 up there, and you get 288 right there. And what happens when you add 144 and 288, you get 432. Our hertz, our base frequency for all tuning of all ancient culture, 432. So I thought that was pretty cool. What else? It doesn't stop there. It just keeps going. So another cool thing that I did was I took 432 and I subtracted 360. Well, guess what I got? 72. For those of you familiar with astrology and astronomy, you know that the axis of the Earth wobbles, or is not only tilted, but it's actually wobbling like a top that's spinning about to lose its balance. And the precession of the equinox is ascribed to this wobble, if you will, and that means that the equinox changes by 1 degree of the zodiac every 72 years. 72 is a fundamental number, just as is 27. And interestingly enough, those two numbers are flipped from each other. And just for fun, you know, I can't help but have a little fun with this. I took 100, I'm going to go over here. I took 100, I'll do it over here. Because 100 is how we measure, it's the basis for our numbering system, right? We have 100% is considered full or complete. And it's the base 10 numbering system because we have 5 fingers on this hand, 5 on that hand. So everything is base 10, and the metric system, of course, is a base 10. So what I've done is blended the base 10 with the base 60, and I've divided, because base 60 is where we get our circle and our geometry and the natural world. So when we divide 360, or divide 100 by 360, we wind up with 0.27. These numbers just keep showing up everywhere you turn. And so even more fun with this, when you, as I mentioned before, when you take the septile, or you divide 360 by 7, you get 51.428. Excuse me. Where's my notes? There we go. 5, 7, and then it continues 1, 4, 5, on and on and on. So what I did next was I took all these numbers that keep repeating themselves, and I added them up in 1 plus 4 plus 2 plus 8 plus 5 plus 7 equals 27. These numbers just show up everywhere you look when you're talking about geometry, when you're talking about music, when you're talking about math, when you're talking about astrology, when you're talking about natural systems in the world, when you're talking about ancient Greeks and their mathematics. I don't know about you, but I'm having fun with this. What else did I want to mention before we wrap this thing up? I think we got it. Those 6 add up to 27. We got the precession of the equinox. Oh, by the way, you know, just to reiterate, 432 is the 5th octave, if you will, up from the base of 27. 144 is the 12th number in the Fibonacci sequence. So anyway, I hope you had fun with this. I hope you like this. I like looking for connections like this. That's what I do when I'm reading an astrological chart for an individual. This is what I do when I'm doing my class, which I call Chakras, Mythology, and Astrological Symbolism. I drive around the country teaching this class in person. I also do this class online where I'm showing the connections between Mars, the planet, and a certain chakra, or the sun, which we call an astrological planet. And of course that's going to be the heart chakra. And I explain why and how that is illustrated in Greek mythology as well. So if you're interested in any of those, having a class taught, attending a class, having a private astrological reading, there's contact information down below here. And yeah, this is stuff I don't actually talk about so much in those classes, but it's related. And it shows you part of the world that I'm seeing is the connection between everything. There's no longer a veil hiding the connections between numbers and music and astronomy. And, oh, I mentioned magic. Yeah, Harry Potter. Harry Potter was basically a Greek myth repurposed for the 20th and 21st centuries. That's why it was so successful. She tapped into those sevens, and of course, if you read Harry Potter, you will recognize the seven being important. You might also recognize that each of the seven books of Harry Potter corresponds to one of these chakras. And of course, every character in Harry Potter is an astrological archetype. I actually teach a class just on the symbolism in Harry Potter as well. So anyway, this is just some fun stuff for you to consider. Contact me if you're interested to learning more. If you'd like to attend a class online, or if you have a group, you'd like to do a group class online just for your group. If you have a metaphysical bookstore, or a healing center, or a yoga studio, or a church where you have presentations. There's a video on my channel here. You can see the introduction to chakras, mythology, and astrological symbolism to give you a taste of what that's about. And I'm going to put a PayPal link down here just in case you want to throw a little money my way. You're maybe not interested in a reading or a class, but you want to support my work. You're welcome to do that through PayPal. You can donate, the smallest amount is fine, $5, $10. You might want to donate $4.32. Whatever number is important to you, feel free. And thank you for watching. Stay tuned. There's going to be more stuff coming up. I think about stuff like this all the time. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the future.